We heard Keir Starmer being asked there about whether he thought he was going to win the election after spending time in Liverpool. What's your answer to that question?
I think my answer is that we don't know because nobody's cast any votes. So we're not taking anything for granted. And what was odd, actually, in some ways, was Labour Party members and politicians within the Labour Party, we are much more cautious than the other people who were all kind of, oh, you're going to win. No, we're not really.
You bear the scars from previous elections.
It's happened too often, and we won't know until, and the power will be in the hands of the people and they will decide, and they may not get a chance to decide for another year.
It was interesting listening to Beth ask Keir about whether he wanted Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
You wanted him to be Prime Minister, right?
Of course. I mean, listen, I absolutely, I have no doubt that any Labour government will always be better than a Conservative government. And I am Labour first, Labour last, Labour always.
It must be a bit weird, though, because, if you see Keir Starmer, he's clearly pursuing a very different route now to Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, he's kicked Jeremy Corbyn out of the party. You were in both shadow cabinets. How's that been? I mean, you must have whiplash.
Well, actually, no, because I think that the vast majority of what Labour stands for always remains solid. I think there are differences, and they may be. I mean, they are important. I'm not claiming they're not important. And I think, the falling out was about anti-Semitism, and that, I'm not saying that isn't a really important thing, but we have a huge amount of policy, and the general principles, I think, have remained the same.
I want to talk to you a little bit about Israel and the Middle East as well. It's a story that, of course, we're covering an awful lot on Sky. Absolutely heartbreaking to see some of the stories coming out, both from the terror that was wreaked in Israel, but also, of course, what's happening in Gaza as well. What, if anything, should the government be doing now?
So I think the first thing is that we need to join the rest of the international community in completely condemning this terrorism. I think that the behaviour of Hamas going into Israel and killing youngsters at a festival, going into people's homes and taking people hostage and so on is just pure terrorism. And we know that. We've seen it ourselves. We've experienced it in 7/7 and just too many examples, Manchester and Bridge and so on. So we must utterly condemn it. And it is, of course, right that Israel is allowed to defend itself. It must defend itself. That statement needs to be made completely clear, unequivocally. And we make that statement.
You say Israel has the right to defend itself.
Yes.
What does that mean? Because we're seeing airstrikes that are killing civilians.
Yes.
A hospital being hit, according to Médecins Sans Frontières. Water and electricity being cut off to Gaza. Is this proportionate? Is it even legal?
So I think that at the moment, things are happening really fast. So I think even our Foreign Secretary was at Tel Aviv Airport and had to be scrambled away and put into a bunker because Tel Aviv Airport was under attack. So it's quite difficult to be able to stand back and say, this but not this, because we don't know. We don't know really what's happening, and we know that there's...
Well, we know some of what's happening.
Well, we know that Israel is currently under attack and is trying to defend itself. And so, I'm not in a position to be able to say this is the right thing to do and that is the wrong thing to do. I mean, clearly, as we all know, no matter... whenever people are under attack, they have a right to defend themselves and they need to defend themselves in a proportionate way. And of course that's the case, and any country needs to abide by international law.
OK. Do you think Israel is abiding by international law?
As I say, it's very difficult at the moment because this is all happening so fast. We're right at the very beginning of this. But it needs to, as a democracy, it needs to behave, in accordance with international law.